How does someone go from being like a fiercely protective husband, the kind making roast chicken for his family on a secluded island, to just completely abandoning them in the span of 12 hours?
Yeah, it's a massive emotional whiplash.
Right. And today's deep dive explores exactly that kind of sudden collapse. We are looking at the 2026 book Strangers, a memoir of marriage by Belle Burden.
Such an intense read.
It really is. I mean, just looking at the physical book, the cover sets this tension immediately. You've got these two intertwined birds, one black, one blue.
The Ospreys.
Exactly. And there's this quote right on the front from literary giant Joyce Carol Oates, calling it a riveting examination of the very nature of intimacy.
High praise.
Definitely. And in the author's note, Belle actually explains that she changed identifying details to protect people, but she stresses that the story is entirely true.
Right. And then that dedication.
Oh man, yeah. Just 3 words. For my children.
It's a really profound setup for what we're about to explore today.
So what exactly is our mission with this source material?
Well, the goal of this deep dive is to decode the anatomy of a sudden marital collapse. We're really examining how a seemingly perfect 2-decade-long relationship can just shatter overnight.
Literally overnight.
Exactly. But more importantly, we want to look at the underlying mechanics of that collapse. What it teaches you about the stories you tell yourself regarding the people you love and rely on the most.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the contrast in these opening chapters is just staggering.
It really is night and day.
It's March 2020. The world is locking down. There's this unknown virus spreading everywhere, and Belle, her husband James, and their 2 youngest daughters flee New York City.
To their isolated house on Martha's Vineyard.
Right, and the text really goes out of its way to establish James as the ultimate protector here. Can you walk us through how he was handling that initial lockdown?
Yeah, he essentially steps into this role of the fortress commander. You have to remember the intense anxiety of those early pandemic days.
Oh, absolutely. The panic was real.
Exactly. And James is waking up at 4 a.m., just agonizing over the hedge fund markets where he works. But physically, around the house, he is constantly fortifying the family's perimeter.
He's like a man on a mission.
Very much so. He's meticulously chopping 3 different kinds of wood to build these gorgeous roaring fires. He goes around locking every single door in a house that is, frankly, already entirely isolated on a lockdown island.
And he's making whiskey sours.
Yes, because at the time, there were those early frantic rumors that whiskey might kill the virus in your throat.
Right, we were all trying anything back then. And in the middle of all this intense domestic fortification, the author introduces this fascinating motif. The Ospreys.
Ah, yes. The Ospreys are crucial for understanding James's psychology.
He seems to be entirely obsessed with the birds on their property.
He really is. He tracks this monogamous Osprey couple that returns to a massive nest on their property every single spring.
So he's pointing them out to the kids, right?
Always. He even befriends the local bird experts to the point where they actually tag one of the female Ospreys and name her Belle after his wife.
Wow.
Yeah, he tracks this bird's migration patterns, openly worrying about her safety, making toast to her return.
It seems like he's, projecting his own idealized version of his marriage onto these birds.
Exactly.
This whole idea of steadfastness, of weathering the storm and always coming back to the nest, which I think is why the inciting incident on March 21st feels so violent.
It's a complete shock to the system.
So it's the first day of spring. The day is idyllic. Their teenage daughter, Evie, is making fresh gnocchi from scratch.
And James is grilling a perfect roast chicken.
Right. He's even taking the time to carve out the coveted oyster of the chicken to give to their youngest daughter, Carrie. Dinner wraps up, and then Belle gets a voicemail.
Yeah.
What exactly happens here?
Well, it is the moment the entire fortress collapses. Belle is literally performing a domestic chore. She's filling a bucket with vinegar and water to mop the floor when she checks a voicemail from an unknown number.
Just a totally mundane moment.
Completely mundane. And the voicemail is this nervous young male voice stating very clearly, "Your husband is having an affair with my wife."
God. It's like they built this impenetrable pandemic-proof bunker, locking out the entire world, only to realize the bomb was already sitting on the kitchen counter.
That is exactly the dynamic. The threat wasn't the virus outside, it was the betrayer inside.
So she confronts him.
Right, and the setting for the confrontation is incredibly jarring. They are in the guest room, but they're surrounded by empty packets of cheddar bunnies and the kids' Fortnite gaming setup.
Not exactly a cinematic backdrop for a dramatic confession.
Not at all. And instead of a dramatic confession, James uses this classic psychological minimization tactic. He leans in, holds her hands, and claims the affair, quote, meant nothing.
Oh, right, and he does that weird hand gesture.
Yes, he literally cups his hands together like he's holding an invisible basketball to describe the attraction as just this contained magnetic force.
I struggle to understand how he thought that would work. I mean, Belle starts asking entirely logical questions.
She goes into lawyer mode.
Exactly. She asks if the woman has kids. He admits she has 2 toddlers. And Belle asks how a married banker with a massive corporate job and 2 toddlers even has the energy to maintain an affair.
She starts poking holes in the logic of the lie immediately.
Because it just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's because the cognitive dissonance James is experiencing is massive. He desperately wants to maintain his self-image as the protector, the guy who carves the oyster of the chicken for his daughter.
While simultaneously managing the fallout of being the predator who destroyed the family.
Exactly. He's trying to bridge 2 entirely incompatible realities.
But he doesn't even get the chance to maintain that bridge because the narrative pivots violently just hours later.
The ambulance scene.
Yes. That very same night, the mistress takes sleeping pills and ends up in an ambulance. This happens literally the exact moment Belle is processing the betrayal.
The timing is incredible.
And James's reaction, I mean, his empathy just instantly shifts away from his wife. He's totally focused on the mistress. Why does he react like that?
So this gets into the mechanics of how people manage intense guilt. Empathy requires a stable sense of self.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, Belle's profound pain is a direct mirror. It's reflecting James's failure and cruelty right back at him. Looking at Belle, who is curled up on the cold bathroom tile, texting her friends in shock, that requires him to face his own monstrous behavior.
Right. She's the proof of what he did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the mistress in the ambulance, that allows him to step back into the role of the caretaker.
Oh, wow.
His hushed, intimate phone calls coordinating the mistress's medical care are a way for him to avoid the guilt of what he has actually done to his wife.
So he redirects his caretaking to the very person destroying his marriage, just because it makes him feel like a savior instead of a villain.
It's pure self-preservation.
That makes the next morning make a lot more sense, but it's still chilling.
Very cool.
It's 6 a.m., and he walks in fully dressed in his parka and heavy boots. Belle specifically notes that his eyes are now cold and green. The warmth is entirely gone.
The shift is absolute.
He looks at his 50-year-old wife of 20 years, says, "You're still young," and just demands a divorce.
Out of nowhere.
He abandons custody of the kids, he gives up the properties, he just drops everything and leaves. And to make it even more brutal, 8 days later, his entire family cuts Belle off via a joint text message.
Yeah, what you are seeing there is not just a departure. It is an erasure.
An erasure.
When someone abruptly removes your physical and emotional safety in that manner, it's a psychological annihilation. He isn't just leaving the marriage. He's attempting to rewrite reality so he doesn't have to carry the moral weight of his actions.
If he just deletes her, he's not the bad guy.
Exactly. If he cuts off all ties, if his family cuts off all ties, they can construct a narrative where they are the victims, or at least where Belle no longer exists to remind them of the betrayal.
But the reality of the children definitely still exists. Which brings up a scene from the book that I really, really need you to explain to me.
The sandwich scene.
The sandwich scene. Fast forward a month to late April. James returns to the island, flying in on his boss's seaplane for a brief 90-minute visit to officially tell the kids about the divorce.
The kids' trauma responses are just visceral here.
They really are. Carrie, the youngest, literally shrieks in agony. Finn, the oldest, just hangs up the phone in shock. And Evie crosses her arms, shuts down, but then starts aggressively cooking intricate meals to keep her mother fed.
Yes, you are seeing the classic trauma responses play out in real time. Fight, flight, freeze.
Exactly. But amidst all of this nightmare, right after dropping this nuclear bomb on his daughters, James turns to Belle and says he's starving. He actually asks her to make him a sandwich.
It is audacious.
It's insane. Now, I read this part 3 times. Belle is an accomplished former corporate lawyer. She won acquittals in Brooklyn courtrooms, and yet she doesn't scream at him.
No, she doesn't.
She goes to the kitchen. She meticulously crafts a perfect turkey and avocado sandwich on sourdough bread. She sprinkles it with sea salt. She puts it on a bamboo-rimmed white plate, and selects a blee-flowered cotton napkin.
The details are so specific.
She's literally slicing avocado for the guy who is simultaneously rummaging through her basement trying to find their missing 1999 prenup. Why isn't she throwing the plate at his head?
Well, it completely defies our expectation of how a wrong person should act, doesn't it? We expect anger. We expect the fight response.
Right, I would be furious.
Most people assume they would be. But we have to look at the fourth trauma response, which is fawning.
Fawning, how does that work?
Fawning is a subconscious survival mechanism where a person attempts to avoid conflict and mitigate a threat by appeasing the aggressor.
Oh, right.
In the text, Belle often refers to her internal conditioning as Belle the Good. She was the obedient daughter, the quiet child who didn't speak until she was 3, the diligent lawyer who never broke a rule.
She's a rule follower.
Deeply. So when her reality shatters, her nervous system is incredibly overwhelmed. To prevent a total psychological collapse, her brain defaults to the deepest, most ingrained survival pathway she has, which is compliance.
So you're saying she thinks a turkey sandwich is going to fix the divorce?
No, she knows the marriage is over, but subconsciously she thinks that maintaining her identity as the good mother and the good wife will keep her from falling apart.
Oh, I see.
If she can just control this one small thing, making a perfect sandwich, choosing the right napkin, she retains some semblance of order in a universe that has become entirely chaotic. It's an act of desperate psychological grounding.
Wow. That actually makes so much sense. And his reaction to her compliance is just brutal. After he finishes his sandwich, finds his prenup, and leaves, he sends her a text message saying, "That was a great visit."
That text is the ultimate gaslighting.
It's disgusting.
He is taking a scene of agonizing, generational, familial trauma where his youngest daughter is shrieking in pain, and he is rebranding it as a pleasant afternoon. He is imposing his own distorted reality over her actual lived experience.
But this raises a massive question. Was James always this cold? Did a switch just flip in his brain?
It's the core mystery of the memoir.
To understand why Belle was so utterly blindsided by this lack of steadiness, it seems we have to step back. We have to look at the broader context of her childhood, specifically the man who originally defined unsteady in her life, her father.
Precisely. You cannot understand Belle's blind spot regarding James without understanding the environment she was raised in.
And the contrast between James and Belle's father is immense. According to the book, her father was this magnetic, larger-than-life figure, a 1960s socialite.
He and Belle's mother were known as a fun couple in the press.
Right. Her mother was Babe Paley's daughter. And her dad was incredibly active in progressive politics. He drafted an early gay rights bill. He worked for Robert F. Kennedy. He was an obsessive, glamorous collector, trading Jasper Johns paintings for first edition books that he kept in custom-made boxes.
But that glamour masked an intense, terrifying chaos.
Literally.
The text details how he was a man of unpredictable, terrifying moods who threw literal foot-stomping tantrums. And beneath the socialite exterior, he harbored dark secrets, including a lifelong, hidden addiction to prescription diet pills.
And that chaos reached a catastrophic peak in 1996.
Yes, when she was in law school.
Belle was in her 3rd year of law school when her father died suddenly of an arrhythmia at age 54. The emotional trauma of losing her dad was horrific enough, but the financial fallout was entirely destabilizing.
Completely.
He left behind an estate that was $40 million in debt. Belle suddenly found herself hiding in tiny phone booths at her glamorous corporate law firm, crying her eyes out, fielding calls from estate lawyers and bankers, just trying to save her family from total financial ruin.
Let's look at the mechanism of that trauma. Her father's sudden death, coupled with the chaotic revelation of his hidden financial ruin, completely wired Belle's nervous system to associate excitement, charisma, and unpredictability with danger.
It's like her father was this spectacular fireworks display, beautiful, loud, mesmerizing, but highly dangerous.
Yes.
And when it was over, it left a massive smoking mess behind. So naturally, when Belle goes looking for a partner to spend her life with, she actively seeks out the most boring rocks she can find.
That is exactly the dynamic, but it's crucial to understand how that works psychologically.
Okay, tell me.
Humans don't necessarily seek out objective safety. We seek out what feels familiar, or we aggressively seek out the absolute opposite of our trauma, mistaking that extreme contrast for safety.
Right, and my dad was chaos, then silence must be safe.
Exactly. For Belle, James represented the ultimate safe harbor because he was the absolute antidote to the chaos of her father.
You can see this pattern of her seeking safety throughout her early life, especially when it comes to deferring her own dreams to avoid conflict.
Oh, absolutely.
She actually wanted to be a writer. She won fiction prizes in high school. But in college, she gets into a selective writing seminar, and this punk rock senior named Greg, wearing combat boots, tears apart her first short story.
Just destroys it.
He just flat out tells the class she can't write. And Belle's reaction, she just internalizes it. She shrinks her voice and gives up writing entirely.
Because her internal foundation was already cracked. When you grow up managing the volatile moods of a parent, you learn to read the room and shrink yourself to avoid triggering an explosion.
You make yourself small.
Exactly. That one critique from the guy in combat boots wasn't just a critique of her writing. To her nervous system, it was a threat. She defers to the loudest, most authoritative voice in the room to keep the peace.
That makes total sense.
And we see the exact same mechanism dictate her legal career.
Right. She discovers she actually loves criminal defense. She interned in Brooklyn, sitting at a cramped desk, and she won an acquittal in a deli robbery case. She felt alive in the courtroom.
But she doesn't stay?
No. Instead of pursuing that passion, she takes the safe path. She accepts a high-paying corporate job at Davis Polk, a firm with sweeping city views and Blondewood offices, and she is utterly miserable. She hides in the bathroom and cries almost every day.
She is prioritizing the illusion of security over her own authenticity. She is silencing her own desires to build a life that looks secure and unassailable on paper.
It's tragic, really.
It is, and it is in that specific environment, the sterile, high-pressure, emotionally detached world of Davis Polk, that she meets James in 1998.
The story of how they meet is so telling. James is the ultimate prep school corporate guy. Belle is holding an Oscar ballot in the office, and she asks him who he thinks should win Best Actress.
And he has no idea.
He has no idea who Judi Dench is. She asks if he's seen Good Will Hunting, and he says no, he doesn't know what that is. He's totally disconnected from the arts, from culture, from anything remotely unpredictable or chaotic.
But what he can do, and what he does remarkably well, is fix a legal memo flawlessly.
Right.
He is highly competent, traditional, and polite. He wears the right conservative suits. He speaks in a calm, gentle voice.
The book mentions he actually looks a lot like her dad. Tall, blonde, handsome, but he operates without any of the volatility. He invites her to Greece. They have this electrifying first kiss in his office.
And to Belle, James is the absolute definition of steady.
But honestly, looking at that evidence, I have to ask, does she even really know him? Or did she just superimpose her desperate, unhealed need for a reliable father figure onto a guy who just happened to be really good at marking up a corporate prospectus?
That is the structural fault line of the entire marriage. It's not that the marriage suddenly decided to collapse on a random Tuesday in March.
Right, it wasn't out of nowhere.
No. The foundation was built on a sinkhole from day one. It just took the pressure of the lockdown to finally break the beams. We so often project our unhealed wounds onto our partners.
We see what we want to see.
Belle looked at James and saw what her nervous system desperately needed to see, a rock. But she didn't see the actual man. She didn't see the compartmentalization, the emotional detachment, the capacity to switch empathy on and off.
Which is the tragic irony of the whole memoir. James seemed like the safe choice, but 2 decades later, he ends up hiding a secret life and inflicting a sudden, deeply traumatic abandonment, exactly like her father did.
The cycle repeated.
She ran from the fireworks and hugged the rock, only to find out the rock was just a different kind of explosive.
Exactly. When you choose a partner merely because they are the opposite of your trauma, you aren't really choosing them. You are just running from your past.
Wow.
But that realization is also what sparks her recovery. Belle spent her entire life shrinking her own voice to avoid chaos.
Right. She deferred to the critic in combat boots. She took the safe corporate job. She played the good wife, making the perfect sandwich for 20 years.
But writing this memoir, publishing Strangers, is her ultimate act of refusal, isn't it?
It really is. The book details how, during the divorce process, James explicitly demands she lie to their social circle. He wants her to tell people the split was a mutual decision to make things easier for him.
And what does she do?
For the first time, Belle the Good looks at him and says, "No, I won't say that."
That single refusal is everything. It is the moment she reclaims the voice she surrendered all those years ago.
She stops fawning.
She stops mitigating the threat and finally stands in her own truth. It forces the reader to look objectively at the mechanics of their own relationships.
Which brings these core themes directly to your doorstep. It makes you look around at your own life. Are you seeing the actual people in your life with all their specific complexities and flaws? Or are you just looking at the versions of them that fulfill your unhealed needs?
It's a heavy question.
It is. Are there areas in your own life where you are playing the role of the good, meticulously slicing avocado and picking out the nice napkins, deferring your own voice just to keep the peace and avoid the chaos?
It is a difficult, necessary mirror to look into, because when the illusion of safety shatters, what are you actually left with?
And I want to leave you with a final lingering image from the text to mull over on your own. Think back to those Ospreys on Martha's Vineyard. Remember how obsessed James was with them?
He loved them.
He loved the male Osprey sky dance, the whistling call, the idea of their lifelong monogamy. He projected his own desired image of steadfast loyalty onto those birds, just like Belle projected her need for safety onto him.
But here is the ultimate bitter irony of the story.
Yeah.
The Ospreys never changed their nature.
No, they didn't.
After James destroyed his family, demanded the divorce, and completely abandoned the island, the birds returned to that giant nest on the pole right on schedule, exactly as they always do.
The only thing that changed was the man watching them. It proves that the wild, unpredictable animals were actually far more steadfast and true to their nature than the human who so deeply admired them. The sudden collapse wasn't an anomaly. It was simply the truth finally breaking through the illusion. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.